Have you noticed? The older you get, the more you crave peace over noise, clarity over confusion, and genuine connection over forced loyalty. What drains your soul most in old age isn't illness, it's the emotional exhaustion caused by those closest to you. And here's the hard truth: the ones who wound you most deeply may be the very people you've loved the longest. Aging brings wisdom, but it also reveals hard truths. As life slows down, we begin to prioritize peace over people-pleasing. We seek sincerity over obligation. But there's one truth many never dare to speak out loud, sometimes. The most dangerous people in your later years are the ones you've known your whole life, even family. And today, I want to begin with the first kind of person you must absolutely avoid as you grow older. The guilt tripper. At first glance, they seem harmless. They don't yell. They don't confront. No, they whisper. They sigh. They give you long silences that make you feel like the villain. You say, "I need some rest," and they respond with, "So I'm not important anymore?" You simply want a moment for yourself. And suddenly you're labeled as selfish, cold, or ungrateful. Does that sound familiar? These people don't use force, they use emotional weight. They don't ask for much, just enough to make you feel guilty for ever having a boundary. And the most dangerous part? They often come dressed in the clothing of family, wrapped in love, but tied tightly with obligation. They say things like, "I took care of you once. Look how you treat me now. I guess I'll just figure it out myself since you're so busy." You don't hear these things once. You hear them again and again, until you begin to question whether you're the problem. But I want you to remember this, and hold it deep within you. Right finger, your life is not a debt to be repaid. Not to your children, not to your siblings, not to your oldest friends. You do not owe anyone your peace. You do not owe anyone your health. And you certainly do not owe anyone the last pieces of your energy just so they can feel powerful or morally superior. That's not love. That's manipulation disguised as emotional currency. And the scariest thing is, guilt trippers are professional time thieves. They pull you into long, draining conversations until you're left exhausted. Not from shouting, but from silence. Right arrow in the next part. We'll dive deeper. How do you recognize this behavior early? And how do you reclaim your mental and emotional freedom before it's too late? Wake up before it's too late, because peace shouldn't need permission. They'll pull you into conversations that drain you. They'll push you into obligations that wear you down, into relationships that make you question your own worth. And then, you'll hear things like, "Right finger, if you really loved me, you would have done it." But remember this, love is not proven through exhaustion. Love is not measured by how much of yourself you abandon. You don't prove love by shrinking. Right finger, you prove love by living in truth. Here's what's even more dangerous. Guilt trippers slowly train you to doubt yourself. You begin to wonder, am I being selfish? Am I really not doing enough? And that's exactly how they control you. They don't chain your hands, they chain your mind with quiet guilt. But freedom begins the moment you realize. Right finger emotional manipulation is a form of control. And in this season of life, you don't have time to be controlled anymore. Now is the time to carve out space, to breathe, to heal, to reflect, and most importantly, to truly live. You've spent decades showing up for others, raising children, holding families together, giving your all at work, sacrificing without pause. Now it's time to protect what's left of you, for you. Not because you're cold, not because you're bitter, but because you deserve to be free. I know, this may sound harsh, especially in cultures where family means everything. But I'm not telling you to cut off everyone who's difficult. What I'm saying is, right finger, protect yourself from the ones who use guilt as a leash. That's not love. That's control wrapped in familiarity. Sometimes, the most loving thing you can do is disappoint expectations that were never healthy in the first place. And here's a truth many are afraid to admit. Just because someone is family doesn't mean they're healthy for your spirit. Let me say that again. Just because someone is family doesn't mean they're good for your soul. At this stage in your life, you are not responsible for healing everyone. You are not responsible for holding the family together at the expense of your mental and emotional health. You are not a referee. You are not a therapist. And you are definitely not someone's emotional punching bag. Right finger, you are here to live. Finally, fully, truthfully. You don't need to explain your boundaries to those who were never going to honor them. You don't need to justify your peace. Right finger, you just need to claim it. Because you've earned it. Through every storm, through every heartbreak, through every silent sacrifice you've made. Right arrow in the next part. We'll talk about the second type of person you must avoid in your later years, the one who quietly destroys your peace. Just as dangerously. Protect your light, because you were not made to carry everyone's darkness. You've stayed silent when you should have spoken. You gave away nights when you had nothing left. Right finger, so the peace you have now, you've earned it with your life. Don't trade that peace for guilt. Because if someone truly loves you, they will want your peace more than your obedience. Real love doesn't demand. It respects. It honors. It creates space. It doesn't guilt you into silence or submission. So as you move forward, right finger, be mindful of the guilt trippers. They may come with warm smiles and gentle voices. But if your soul feels heavier every time they leave, pay attention to that. Your spirit knows when it's being pulled into something unhealthy. And if you ever need a reminder that it's okay to say no, right finger, this is that reminder. Saying no to them is saying yes to you. And that is a trade worth making, every single time. Blank, underscore, blank. Now, let's talk about the second kind of person you need to start stepping away from. The chronic complainers, the ones who are never satisfied. I like to call them energy vampires. You know exactly who I'm talking about. They're the ones who could win the lottery and still complain about the taxes. The sun could be shining, and they'll still say it's too bright. You could be having a peaceful day, and they'll show up with a storm cloud hanging over their head, and try to pull you under it with them. But here's the truth. Right finger, as you age, your energy becomes sacred, and you don't have the reserves you once had. You must be intentional about where you spend it, and on whom. But energy vampires? They don't care about that. They'll talk your ear off for hours about everything wrong in their life. Never once asking how you are. Never once checking in on your heart. And worse, right finger, they don't want solutions. They just want company in their misery. They drain your spirit, not with yelling or drama, but with a slow, steady drip of negativity. One phone call, one visit, one conversation, and suddenly, your entire day feels heavier. You feel irritable, anxious, unsettled, and you can't even explain why. That's how it works. They offload their emotional weight onto you and walk away feeling lighter, while you're left holding bags you never packed. Right finger, and let me say this plainly. You were not put on this earth to be someone's emotional landfill. You were not created to absorb everyone's darkness at the cost of your own light. Right arrow in the next part. We'll dive deeper into how to recognize these emotional energy vampires, and why letting go of them is one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself. Guard your energy, because no one else gets to write your ending. Protecting your energy, it's not just something you should do. Right finger, it's something you must do. Especially at this stage of your life. I know, some of these people might be close. Maybe a sibling, a lifelong friend, a neighbor, even your own child, and that makes it harder. But please hear this. Right finger, just because someone is in your life story doesn't mean they get to write your ending. If they can't bring peace into your space, if all they do is drain, complain, and criticize, then yes, it is absolutely okay, even necessary, to create distance, not out of anger, right finger, but out of self-respect, out of a deep understanding that your mental and emotional health matters. And you no longer have the time, or the desire, to keep pouring yourself out for people who only know how to take. Have you ever noticed how being around certain people makes you feel smaller? How your mood changes after talking to them? How your hope shrinks and your certainty fades, even though just moments before, you were feeling clear and strong? Right finger, that's the quiet erosion of your peace, happening in real time. And trust me, it adds up over the years. There are people who have become so used to complaining, they don't even realize they're doing it anymore. Their whole identity is built on what's wrong, what's missing, who's to blame. And if you spend enough time around them, right finger, they'll start convincing you to see life that way too. That's the real danger. They don't just drain you. Right finger, they reshape you. They mold your perspective with their bitterness. And if you're not paying attention, you'll start picking up that weight, without even realizing it. But you deserve more than that. Right finger, you deserve to be around people who lift you, who challenge you with love, who speak hope, not just hurt, who remind you that even when the world is messy, there's still beauty all around you. And if you don't have that kind of energy in your circle, right finger, then maybe it's time to tighten that circle. Let me tell you something most people won't. Right finger, peace is more powerful than noise. It doesn't have to announce itself. It doesn't need validation. But when it's missing, you'll feel it, in your body, in your spirit, in your mind. Right finger, protecting your peace means protecting your energy. And protecting your energy means stepping back from people who treat your presence like a dumping ground for their dysfunction. You are not obligated to answer every phone call. You are not responsible for absorbing every complaint. Right arrow, in the next part, we'll dive into how to set boundaries with compassion and strength, so that you can hold on to your light in a world that's constantly pulling at it. Refusing to carry what's not yours, because real love shouldn't drain you. You are not required to carry what someone else refuses to release. Right finger, guarding your space is not selfish. Saying, I love you, but I can't carry this with you today. Right finger is not rude. It is wisdom. It is maturity. It is self-preservation born from a life that has already carried more than its share. There comes a point in life where you stop apologizing for choosing peace. You stop explaining why you prefer silence over someone else's chaos. You stop feeling guilty for stepping away from cycles of complaining and criticism. Right finger, because the truth is, you've outgrown that noise, and that is something to be proud of. You are entering a season where your energy should go toward healing, self-reflection, and fully enjoying the time you have left, not being pulled into someone else's storms and struggles. Right finger, you've already carried enough. Right finger, you've already sacrificed more than enough. Now, your energy must be guarded like treasure. So when the complainers come calling, when the critics try to pull you back into their vortex of negativity, remember this: blank, underscore, blank. Now let's go deeper, into a place that stings even more. Right finger, the people who only show up when they need something. The users. The ones who treat their relationship with you like a convenience store. They drop in when they're running low, grab what they need, then disappear the moment they've stocked up. And to be clear, this isn't about being unwilling to help others. This is about knowing when help has turned into a one-way street. When love has turned into a transaction. When your presence only matters when you're useful. You've seen it before. The person who only calls when their car breaks down. The one who shows up when rent's due. The one who comes back into your life just long enough to borrow money. Borrow time, borrow peace, and then fades away without even a thank you. Let alone a, how are you? And because of your good heart, you give him the benefit of the doubt, again and again. Because that's who you are. You want to see the best in people. You remember who they used to be. You keep hoping that one day they'll come back just to be with you. Not because they need anything, just because they care. But life has a lesson for those who pay attention. Right finger, some people never show up unless there's something in it for them. Right arrow in the next part. We'll explore how to lovingly release these one-sided connections and reclaim your time, peace, and worth in the process. Love is not used, learning to let go without losing yourself. And that kind of relationship, no matter how long it's lasted or how much history it holds. Right finger is not love. It's dependency. It's convenience. And if you don't learn how to say no, right finger, it will leave you emotionally bankrupt. One of the hardest lessons you'll face in your later years is this. Right finger, being needed is not the same as being loved. Let me say that again. Right finger, being needed is not the same as being loved. Some people only keep you in their lives because you're easy. Because you don't push back. Because they know your heart is generous and your boundaries are soft. And every time they show up, right finger, they take a little more from you. Not just money or time. They take your presence, your peace, your patience, and they leave you emptier than they found you. And don't they always come with a convincing reason? A story, an excuse, a promise that this time, it will be different. And for a moment, you want to believe it. Right finger, you want to believe they've changed. That maybe, just maybe, they're here because they care. Not because they're desperate. But then it happens again. You give, they take, and the second their crisis is over, right finger, they vanish. The danger of this kind of relationship is how it wears you down slowly. It doesn't destroy you all at once. It's a slow erosion, a steady draining of your soul. You start feeling guilty for not being available. You question yourself for setting boundaries. You wonder if maybe you're being too harsh. But deep down, you already know, right finger, you're being used. And it hurts. There's a silence that settles in after someone takes what they need. A silence that makes it clear. Right finger, they weren't there for you. They were there for what you could give. And if you listen carefully, right finger, that silence will teach you something powerful. Right finger, you deserve more than being someone's backup plan. You deserve more than being someone's emotional ATM. You deserve people who pour back into you. Not just when it's convenient for them, but consistently, with presence, with love, with honesty. And I know it's hard. It's hard to walk away from someone you've poured into for years. Hard to say no to someone you once held in your arms, shared meals with, or prayed for in silence. Right arrow in the next part. We'll talk about how to release what no longer serves your spirit, so you can finally reclaim your peace without regret. Choosing peace, and letting go of what was never love. Late into the night, you lie awake, thinking, worrying, giving. But at some point, you've got to ask yourself, right finger, what is this relationship costing me? Not just financially, but emotionally, spiritually, energetically. Am I constantly drained? Am I truly respected? Am I being seen for who I am, or only for what I provide? And don't be surprised when the very same people call you selfish. The moment you stop catering to their needs. Right finger, that's their tactic. That's how they keep the cycle going. As long as they can guilt you. Right finger, they can use you. But the moment you choose peace over performance, the moment you stop being available on demand, right finger, that's when they show you who they really are. And when that moment comes, let it happen. Let them walk. Let them be angry. Let them twist the story if they need to. But you stay rooted, because deep down, you already know. Right finger, you were not made to be used. Right finger, you were made to be loved. In this season of your life. Right finger, you don't need people who keep score. Right finger, you don't need people who only remember you when they're in crisis. You need people who remember you in joy, in silence, in the stillness of ordinary days. People who value your presence, not just your usefulness. You've given enough. Now it's time to receive. Not just respect, right finger, but real, mutual care. And that begins by refusing to be anyone's emotional vending machine. So when they come knocking, only when they're in need, when they reach out a hand, but never to hold yours. Remember this, right finger, if their love disappears when your resources run out, it was never love to begin with. Blank, underscore, blank. Now let's talk about another type of person, one of the hardest to recognize at first. But once you do, everything starts to make sense. Right finger, the controllers. These are the ones who, no matter how old you get, right finger, still treat you like you don't know what's best for yourself. They don't shout. They don't always demand. Sometimes, they even sound like they're helping. But underneath all that concern, right finger, what they really want is control. And I want you to hear this loud and clear. Right finger, you do not need to be managed. Right finger, you need to be respected. It's one of the most subtle forms of emotional suffocation. When someone constantly questions your decisions, undermines your judgment, or tries to run your life under the mask of, right finger, I'm just trying to help. But what they're really doing, right finger, is robbing you of your dignity, your voice, your freedom. And if that means disappointing those who think they know better than you, then so be it. Your truth is not up for debate. Your freedom is not something you have to keep earning over and over again. You've already paid for it, with years of sacrifice, experience, and wisdom. Don't let anyone confuse your need for support with a need for supervision. Yes, we all need help from time to time, that's human. But needing help doesn't mean handing over the keys to your life. It means inviting someone in as a partner, not a warden. Controllers will often act offended when you push back. They'll say things like, right finger, I'm just trying to help. But there's a difference between looking out for someone and trying to control them. One comes from love, the other from fear. And you've lived too much life to let someone else's fear dictate your steps. You deserve to be surrounded by people who trust your voice, respect your choices, and believe in your capacity to lead your own life. Let's be honest, right finger, if they don't trust you by now, what more do you need to prove? You no longer need anyone's approval to live your life. You just need people who will walk alongside you, not over you. And I know for some of you, this will mean hard conversations. It will mean saying, right finger, I love you, but I'm going to make this decision on my own. It means letting go of the need to be understood, and choosing instead to be respected. That takes courage, but it's the kind of courage that sets you free. So if someone in your life is trying to box you in, if they're parenting you when all you need is partnership, if they make you feel like your dreams are foolish, right finger, or your choices don't matter, stand tall, because this life is still yours to live. They always talk about what everyone else is doing wrong, right finger, but they never stop to ask themselves, what do I need to change? They act like they've got all the answers. Right finger, but deep down, they're just afraid of transformation. And let me tell you something, growth doesn't stop just because your hair has turned grey. In fact, spiritual growth becomes even more important the older you get. Because in this chapter of life, you're not just looking back. Right finger, you're preparing for something deeper, peace, clarity, and legacy. But you cannot walk into that kind of spiritual freedom, right finger, while still surrounded by people who refuse to grow. People who are still arguing about petty things. People still angry over things that happened 20 years ago. People still holding onto offenses like they're medals of honor. Right finger, when in reality, they're just anchors weighing down the soul. And if you let them, right finger, they will drag you into conversations that no longer serve your spirit. Arguments that go nowhere. Mindsets that trap you in cycles. Here's the truth. Right finger, it is not your job to carry someone forward if they have chosen to stand still. I know that might sound harsh, but listen, your soul wasn't meant to be trapped in someone else's emotional immaturity. Just because you share a past with someone, right finger, doesn't mean you owe them your future. Some people will look at you and say, right finger, you've changed. And you know what? That's one of the greatest compliments you can receive. Because if you're not changing, right finger, you're not growing. And if you're not growing, right finger, you're slowly dying emotionally, spiritually, and mentally. But people who are stuck don't want to see you grow. Right finger, your growth threatens their comfort. Right finger, your peace exposes their unrest. Right finger, your healing reminds them of the work they've been avoiding for years. Sometimes, the hardest people to walk away from are the ones you've known the longest. Not because they're good for you, right finger, but because they've become familiar. They've become habitual. But familiarity is not a reason to stay stuck. You can still love someone from a distance. You can honor the history, without carrying the weight of it. I've seen it time and time again. Elders who are wise in age but stagnant in spirit. They are full of stories. Right finger, but empty of insight. They can tell you what happened. Right finger, but never what it meant. When memories become chains. We just talked about people who refuse to grow. Now let's take it a step further. What happens when memory becomes a trap? They can list every regret they've ever had. Right finger, but they can't tell you what they've learned from them. That's not wisdom. Right finger, that's just memory. And memory without meaning is like a scratched record, stuck on repeat with no progression. But I know you didn't come this far in life just to spin in circles. Right finger, you came this far to find peace, to find rest, to pass on more than stories, to pass on truth. But how can you pass on truth, right finger, when you're still dragging the weight of people who refuse to reflect, refuse to heal, refuse to let go? Their chaos becomes your burden. Their pain becomes your prison. And slowly, you'll find yourself watering dead plants. Right finger, hoping for change that was never going to come. Let me say something hard, but necessary. Some people aren't interested in becoming better. They're only interested in being right. And if you're not careful, you'll waste the best years of your final season trying to convince people of something their hearts are not ready to receive. Right finger, but that's not your assignment. You were not put here to carry grown adults through emotional growth they refuse to do. You were not called to drag them toward healing they deny. Right finger, your job now is to walk in peace, to keep growing, and to surround yourself with people who are doing the same. Look for people who are curious, not just opinionated. People who are open, not just loud. People who are seeking healing, not rehearsing pain. And when you do, something will shift. You'll feel light again, clear, alive. Right finger, because growth creates space. But being around people who refuse to grow, that suffocates your spirit. You deserve relationships that feel like fresh air. Right finger, not like a heavy fog. People who challenge you with love, not chain you with fear. And if that means shrinking your circle, so be it. Because a small circle filled with truth and growth. Right finger is far better than a large crowd filled with noise and numbness. So next time you find yourself among people who haven't grown a single inch in heart or spirit, people clinging to bitterness, still blaming the world, still recycling the same stories from decades ago, remember this: there's still one more kind of person you need to distance yourself from in this sacred season of your life. And this time, it's not about energy, right finger, it's about faith. The ones who mock it, belittle it, dismiss it, those who mock your faith, keep your distance. There are people who don't just believe differently, they deliberately mock your faith. They take pleasure in tearing down the very foundation your soul has been built on. Remember this: faith is not weakness. Faith is strength. It's your faith that has kept you standing through pains that should have broken you. It's your faith that held you when no one else stayed. It's your faith that whispered, "Keep going," while everything around you was falling apart. Anyone who laughs at that, anyone who treats faith as foolishness, doesn't deserve a place in your life, especially at this sacred stage of it. Because as we age, the questions get deeper, the reflections grow heavier. You start to think about eternity, about purpose, about what truly matters beyond the surface of daily life. At this point, you're no longer counting years, you're measuring meaning. And in this spiritual space, you need people who speak life, not sarcasm. They may not walk the same path of faith as you, right finger, but at the very least, they should respect your journey. Yet some people are so deeply rooted in cynicism, they can't help but mock what they don't understand. They'll make you feel silly for praying. They'll make you feel small for believing in something bigger than yourself. They'll mock the very thing that's anchored your soul in every storm. And if you let them too close, their doubt will seep into your spirit. Right finger, not because they're right, but because their voice is loud and constant. Don't let that happen. Don't let their sarcasm shrink your faith. Don't let their jokes plant seeds of shame in your soul. Because the truth is, faith is not fragile, it's fire. It's the fire that kept you alive. It's the fire that held your family together. It's the fire that healed your heart over and over again. Faith doesn't make you naive. It makes you grounded. It makes you wise. And if someone can't see that, it's because they're not looking with the right eyes. Some of these people might even be very close to you. A friend you've known for decades. A family member who's grown cold over the years. Maybe even one of your own children. Now thinking they're too smart to believe in what they call old stories. And yes, you love them. You always will. But just because you love someone, right finger, doesn't mean you have to let them disrespect the sacred parts of your soul. This isn't about arguing. This isn't about trying to convert them. Hold your faith. Protect your peace. Walk in the light of God. There are things in life you don't need to explain to anyone. This is the time to protect the soil of your soul, the very ground you've spent a lifetime fighting for. You've bled for it. You've cried in the dark for it. And now, you owe no one an apology for what you believe, who you pray to, or what gives you hope when the world falls apart. You know what's real. You know what you've lived through. You've felt God's hand carry you when no one else could. You've heard His voice in the silence, seen His grace show up when you didn't deserve it. And I don't care how educated, accomplished, or enlightened someone claims to be. Right finger, if they haven't walked through your valley, they don't get to mock your light. Sometimes, loving people from a distance is the kindest thing you can do for your soul. You can still pray for them. You can still wish them well. but you do not have to allow them to poison your peace or shake your foundation with their doubt. Because that's not love. Right finger, that is spiritual warfare in disguise, dressed up as casual conversation. And let me say one more thing. It's not just about what they say. It's the energy they bring. The condescending looks, the passive-aggressive sighs, the subtle digs that chip away at your peace little by little. You deserve better. You deserve people who honor your journey, even if they don't share it. People who will sit with you in truth, not try to poke holes in it for sport. Because at the end of it all, we're all leaving this world. And when that day comes, what matters won't be how many arguments we won, but how much peace we carried, how well we loved, and how deeply we believed. I want you to lie down at night with peace in your heart. Not because life is perfect, but because your soul is anchored. Because you didn't let mockery steal your reverence. Because you held on to your faith, even when others laughed. So when the mockers come, whether through sarcasm or silence, remember this. Right finger, you don't need anyone's agreement to stay close to God. You just need the courage to protect your faith like the sacred treasure it is. _blank. Folded hands, thank you for staying with us until the final moment. If this message spoke to your heart, be sure to like, subscribe to Dr. G_check_official John Ernie Success, and share this video with someone who may need a fresh breath of faith. Push pin, don't forget to turn on notifications bell, so you never miss another message of healing, truth, and transformation. God is calling you back to yourself. And the life you've dreamed of begins the moment you choose to stand firm in your faith.